Number 1. Kemia Hassel. On the night of December 31st, 2018, 22-year-old Army Specialist Kemia Hassel orchestrated the murder of her husband, 23-year-old Army Sergeant Tyrone Hassel III. The two met in 2015 at Fort Carson, Colorado, and had a son together. The shooting occurred outside his father's home in St. Joseph Township, Michigan, while he was on military leave visiting family. Kemia and Tyrone, both stationed at Fort Stewart, Georgia, had returned to Michigan for the holidays. That evening, Tyrone had gone to a family gathering, while Kemia remained at home with their 1-year-old son. At approximately 11 p.m., Tyrone returned to the house to bring Kemia some food. As he stood near his vehicle in the driveway, he was ambushed and shot multiple times. Kemia dialed 911 and reported the shooting, appearing distraught and pretending to not having a foreknowledge of the incident. Witnesses described her as emotionally shaken, even attempting to get into the ambulance as paramedics treated her husband. However, her demeanor and background soon came under scrutiny. Police began their investigation by interviewing neighbors. One witness reported seeing a man fleeing the scene and entering a black vehicle. Meanwhile, Kemia was interviewed multiple times. She claimed to have no knowledge of who could have targeted her husband and mentioned she was due to receive $400,000 in Army life insurance benefits. The case took a turn 11 days later, when an anonymous caller told the police that her son, who was also in the military, had heard rumors of an affair between Kemia and another soldier. The Army's Criminal Investigation Division became involved, and 2 soldiers at Fort Stewart came forward with concerns about Specialist Jeremy Queller, a 24-year-old soldier stationed with Kemia. According to the CID special agent, Queller had told fellow soldiers that Kemia Hassel was his girl, and that Sergeant Hassel had to go. Investigators discovered that Queller had obtained 2 firearms from another soldier. One weapon matched the caliber used in Tyrone's murder. Queller also reportedly described the shooting in graphic detail to a friend, claiming he stood over him and put one in his head to confirm the murder. Surveillance of Queller led to the discovery of a black Chevy Impala with 9mm ammunition and magazines inside. The license plate placed the vehicle in Michigan at the time of the shooting. On January 11, 2019, Queller was arrested but refused to cooperate. That same day, Michigan police confronted Kemia with information about her relationship with Queller. She denied any involvement and agreed to a polygraph test. When told she had failed, she eventually confessed. Kemia admitted to an affair with Queller and detailed their plot to murder her husband. She signed a written confession and was arrested on January 12, 2019, the day of Tyrone's funeral. In jailhouse phone calls, Kemia told her mother that she had plotted the whole thing. These calls were recorded and presented in court. Prosecutors also used phone records to show that Kemia and Queller had been in contact throughout the day of the murder. At trial, the prosecution emphasized Kemia's motive, which was to eliminate her husband so she could continue her relationship with Queller and receive the life insurance payout. The defense, led by attorney, argued that Kemia was manipulated by Queller and would not have participated in the crime had she never met him. Kemia was found guilty of first-degree premeditated murder and conspiracy to commit murder on July 18, 2019. She was sentenced on August 29, 2019, to life in prison without the possibility of parole. As of May 2025, Kemia Hassel has served 6 years and 4 months in prison. She remains incarcerated in Michigan and is not eligible for release. She was 22 at the time of the crime and will remain in prison for life. Number 2, Susan Lorincz. Susan Lorincz was 59 years old at the time of the incident. She was a longtime resident of Ocala, Florida. She was described by neighbors as a woman with a pattern of complaints, known for frequently calling law enforcement over noise and perceived disturbances in the neighborhood. Prior to the fatal incident, Lorincz had been involved in ongoing disputes with neighbors, specifically Ajike A.J. Owens, a 35-year-old black mother of 4 who lived nearby. On June 2, 2023, an altercation occurred between Lorincz and Owens's children. The children were just 10 and 13 at the time. The incident reportedly began when the children were playing in a field adjacent to Lorinc's residence. According to witness accounts and later court testimony, Lorincz threw a roller skate at one of the boys and attempted to strike the children with an umbrella. After hearing about the altercation from her children, Owens went to Lorinc's home to confront her. Owens approached the closed and locked front door and knocked. Several witnesses confirmed she knocked loudly and shouted for Lorincz to come outside, but no witnesses or surveillance audio captured any verbal threats. At approximately that moment, from inside her home, and without opening the door or confirming who was present, Susan Lorincz fired a single round through the metal front door using a lawfully owned hand firearm. The bullet struck Owens in the upper body. She collapsed and died shortly after in front of her 10-year-old son, who had accompanied her to the residence. Lorincz was not immediately arrested. A Ring doorbell camera captured part of the confrontation. The footage did not show Owens attempting to force entry into the home. After the incident, Marion County Sheriff initially delayed Lorinc's arrest, citing Florida's Stand Your Ground law, which allows a person to use deadly force if they believe their life is in imminent danger. The delay in arrest, along with the circumstances of the case, led to protests and widespread criticism from Owens' family and civil rights advocates. Lorincz was arrested several days later. During questioning, she stated that she felt like she was in an imminent danger, indicating that Owens was so angry when she approached her home. Investigators found that Lorincz had previously searched for information about Florida's self-defense laws online. She also owned 2 legally purchased firearms. No evidence supported the claim that Owens attempted to enter the home or posed an imminent threat. The state attorney decided against charging her with second-degree murder, citing a lack of sufficient evidence to prove intent beyond a reasonable doubt. This decision was met with heavy criticism from the public, who argued that the act of firing blindly through a closed door was consistent with reckless disregard for human life. The trial commenced in August 2024 and was held before an all-white jury in Marion County. Prosecutors presented evidence that Lorincz could not see Owens through the closed door when she fired, and had already conducted internet searches on Florida's self-defense statutes prior to the shooting. Surveillance footage from a nearby Ring doorbell supported that Owens had not attempted to break into the home. Lorincz declined to testify in her own defense. Her attorneys argued that she feared for her life, citing Owens's loud knocking and yelling, and invoked self-defense. However, the jury found that Lorinc's decision to fire without clear identification of a threat constituted aggravated manslaughter. After 2.5 hours of deliberation, the jury returned a guilty verdict on August 16, 2024. On November 25, 2024, the judge sentenced Lorincz to 25 years in state prison for the manslaughter of Ajike Owens. The judge noted the presence of Owens's child at the scene as an aggravating factor in the sentence. Following sentencing, Lorincz remained restrained, and she expressed no remorse in open court, but maintained through her attorneys that she believed she was in imminent danger at the time of the shooting, and no formal apology was recorded. After the sentencing, she was transferred to Lowell Correctional Institution. As of March 2025, Susan Lorincz remains incarcerated at Lowell Correctional Institution. She has served 10 months of her 25-year sentence. At the time of the crime, she was 59 years old. She will be 84 years old if she serves her full sentence and is released in 2049. Number 3. Nickolle Cristina Agular. Nickolle Cristina Agular was 25 years old when she became involved in a case that would lead to the death of her 5-year-old son, Dominic Patrick Aguilar. Originally from Boca Raton, Florida, Cristina had recently entered a relationship with 26-year-old Danielle Garcia. They met through an online dating platform and quickly moved in together and combined their families, including sharing custody of their respective children. In mid-2021, Cristina and Garcia relocated from Florida to San Antonio, Texas, where they stayed in a Wood Spring Suites extended stay hotel near Joint Base San Antonio. According to testimony and law enforcement documents, the abuse began shortly after they arrived in San Antonio. Garcia took on a disciplinary role toward Dominic, allegedly punishing the child harshly and frequently. Cristina had been present as Garcia repeatedly physically abused her son over the course of several weeks, but she didn't make any move to stop it. These assaults allegedly included punches to the different parts of the body. One injury to the jaw was so severe that Dominic wore a mask in public to conceal it. On the night of July 24, 2021, Garcia reportedly struck Dominic with such force that the boy bounced off the wall and collapsed. Cristina stated that later that evening, Dominic vomited a dark-colored liquid. Cristina did not seek for any medical attention for him. According to her statements, she failed to act out of fear of losing her relationship with Garcia, and subsequently, that night, her son died. In the early morning hours of July 25th, the hotel surveillance footage captured Garcia carrying Dominic's lifeless body down a stairwell. The couple then placed the boy's body into a vehicle and began a drive to Colorado. Cristina testified that the decision to bury Dominic in Colorado was hers. She had once promised her children they would see snow, and she believed Colorado was a beautiful place. The couple buried Dominic in a ravine near Berthoud Pass, a mountainous area at 11,307 feet elevation. After the burial, the couple crossed into Mexico and traveled to Costa Rica, where Cristina was born. While there, her mother asked her where Dominic was, and she confessed to her mother about what had happened. Her mother then contacted the San Antonio Police Department. On August 25, 2021, she returned to the United States, and she accompanied the FBI agents and her mother to the burial site in Colorado, where Dominic's body was recovered. An autopsy revealed visible trauma to the child, though the final cause of death was not immediately released. On August 28, 2021, she was formally arrested in Palm Beach County, Florida. Danielle Garcia had been taken into custody the previous day in Miami-Dade County. Both were extradited to Texas. She was charged with injury to a child causing serious bodily injury by omission, a first-degree felony under Texas law. Initially, she faced the possibility of a life sentence. However, on May 8, 2024, she entered into a plea agreement with Bexar County prosecutors. In exchange for her testimony against Danielle Garcia during his murder trial, she received a 15-year sentence. During Garcia's trial, which began on May 21, 2024, Cristina took the stand as the prosecution's first witness. She testified that Garcia had taken over disciplinary duties in their household soon after their relationship began. She described the progression of physical abuse against her son and admitted that she failed to intervene or seek medical attention, citing her desire to maintain the relationship. In response to questions about why she did not leave Garcia or report the abuse, she said she feared being alone and prioritized her relationship. Text messages between Aguilar and Garcia presented in court showed continued expressions of affection from her during the time Dominic was being abused. According to court records, she showed visible emotion but remained composed throughout the proceedings. Her cooperation with authorities, including guiding investigators to the burial site, was noted as a mitigating factor by prosecutors. She was transferred to the Christina Melton Crane Unit, a women's correctional facility in Gatesville, Texas. As of March 2025, she has served approximately 3.5 years of her 15-year sentence. She was 25 years old at the time of the offense and will be eligible for parole consideration under Texas law after serving at least half of her sentence pending good behavior and other institutional factors. If released at the earliest eligibility date, she would be 32 years old. Number 4. Sarah Boone. 42-year-old Sarah Boone was in a romantic relationship with Jorge Torres Jr. The couple lived together and shared an apartment located just north of Orlando. Boone was a former real estate professional. She had no previous felony convictions, but was involved in a volatile, repeated cycle of domestic violence with Torres. Records indicated that Jorge Torres Jr., also 42, had been arrested up to 4 times for alleged physical abuse against Boone, and Boone had also been arrested once in July 2018 for battery by strangulation during a mutual altercation. In each case where Torres had been arrested, Boone later bailed him out of jail. Despite the repeated incidents, the couple continued to live together and reportedly had ongoing problems with alcohol abuse. Their relationship was marked by mutual accusations of physical harm, substance abuse, and frequent altercations. On the morning of February 24, 2020, Boone called 911 and reported that her boyfriend was dead. She explained to Orange County Sheriff's Office deputies that the night before the incident, they had been drinking and playing hide-and-seek. While playing the game, Boone said Torres voluntarily climbed into a suitcase as part of the game and zipped it. She claimed they were both laughing about it, and she went upstairs and fell asleep, forgetting that he was inside the suitcase. Boone was brought in for questioning on February 25, 2020. During the interview, she reiterated her claim that the suitcase incident was part of a game. She said she believed Torres could get out of the suitcase on his own. However, deputies quickly found inconsistencies in her story. Sheriff's Office initiated an investigation, and Boone voluntarily surrendered her mobile phone, which led to the discovery of 2 video recordings from the previous night. In the videos, Torres could be heard pleading for help and repeatedly stating that he could not breathe. Boone responded with laughter and comments referencing past abuse and infidelity, including phrases such as, "This is what it feels like when you cheat on me." The videos contradicted Boone's account of the incident being a harmless game. At one point in the footage, Boone explicitly stated, "That's for everything you've done to me," and mocked him while he struggled. After playing the videos, Boone told investigators she had no memory of recording the videos. The medical examiner ruled Torres' cause of death as homicide by suffocation. The next day, Boone was officially arrested and charged with second-degree murder. She was held without bail in Orange County Jail. Over the following years, the case experienced numerous delays due to factors such as the COVID-19 pandemic and natural disasters, including Hurricane Milton. She went through 8 different defense attorneys, 7 of whom were court-appointed. Several withdrew, citing irreconcilable differences, and at one point she was found to have forfeited her right to court-appointed legal representation. In July 2024, she submitted a handwritten advertisement to the court seeking a new lawyer. The document gained media attention, and she eventually retained private attorney James Owens. Owens entered discussions with the prosecution about a possible plea deal, wherein Boone would plead guilty to manslaughter in exchange for a 15-year sentence. Boone rejected the offer. She maintained throughout pretrial proceedings and the trial that she was a victim of long-term domestic violence and claimed she had acted out of fear. Her trial began on October 14, 2024. The prosecution argued that Boone acted with malice and intent to punish Torres. The defense argued that she suffered from battered woman syndrome and acted while under psychological distress caused by sustained abuse. In her own testimony, Boone stated that she had been trying to break away from the relationship and that she did not intend for Torres to die. On October 25, 2024, following less than 2 hours of jury deliberation, Boone was convicted of second-degree murder, and she was sentenced to life imprisonment in the Florida Department of Corrections. As of March 2025, Sarah Boone remains incarcerated at Lowell Correctional Institution in Marion County, Florida. She has served 5 years of her life sentence. At the time of the crime, Boone was 42 years old. She is not eligible for parole under her current conviction. Number 5. Jullissa Angelica, Genrich. Jullissa Angelica was 29 years old when she fatally shot her 6-year-old son, Eli Hart, inside her car in a parking lot at Lake Minnetonka Regional Park in Minnetrista, Minnesota, on May 20, 2022. Thaler, a resident of Spring Park, had recently regained full custody of her son after a prolonged and contentious legal battle with Eli's father, Torrey Hart. Thaler had a history marked by mental health challenges and substance abuse. Law enforcement had responded to her residence over 20 times within a span of 10 months. She had previously lost custody of Eli in October 2020 and again for the majority of 2021. During that time, Eli lived in foster care and with relatives for a total of 457 days. Despite repeated warnings from concerned family members and professionals, custody was reinstated to Thaler on May 10, 2022, just 10 days before the murder. According to investigators, Thaler purchased a shotgun in mid-March 2022 and had asked a store clerk for ammunition that would blow the biggest hole. She then went to a firearm range over 2 separate days to practice shooting. A friend who accompanied her to the range later confirmed to police that she had been learning to use the weapon and concealed it in a gray blanket when traveling from her apartment. On the night of May 19th, Thaler had an argument with Eli reportedly because he refused to go to bed. She retrieved the firearm, wrapped it in the gray blanket, and placed it in her car. She then left the apartment with Eli. The following morning, officers with the Orono Police Department observed Thaler driving erratically in Mound, Minnesota. Her car was missing a tire. The rim was scraping the road, and the rear windshield was shattered. During the stop, officers noted blood on her hands, a spent firearm shell in the vehicle, and further signs of damage. Nonetheless, they released her after impounding the vehicle, and even drove her home. A later search of the car revealed Eli's body in the trunk, wrapped in a blanket. He had suffered multiple firearm wounds. A child's car seat in the vehicle showed signs of damage from shots fired, and human remains were also found on the roadway, leading back to the site of the incident, tracked through the damage left by her tireless rim. Thaler was arrested shortly thereafter, while leaving her apartment on foot. Police observed blood in her hair, and she did not provide any explanation for her son's death at the time of her arrest. On May 24, 2022, Thaler was formally charged with second-degree intentional murder. The charge was later upgraded to first-degree premeditated murder. The Hennepin County Court found her mentally competent to stand trial. She was offered a plea deal early in the proceedings that would have required her to plead guilty to second-degree murder in exchange for a 40-year prison sentence. Thaler rejected the offer. Her trial began in early 2023. During proceedings, the defense argued that while Thaler may have been involved in her son's death, the prosecution had not proven that she physically pulled the trigger. They pointed to a lack of direct eyewitnesses or surveillance footage. However, Assistant Hennepin County Attorney presented overwhelming circumstantial and forensic evidence, including DNA traces of Eli found on Thaler's hair, skin, and clothes, as well as cell phone data linking her to all relevant locations. On February 8, 2023, after less than 2 hours of deliberation, a Hennepin County jury found Thaler guilty of first-degree murder. The mandatory sentence for this charge in Minnesota is life imprisonment without the possibility of parole. Thaler was formally sentenced on February 16, 2023. During the sentencing hearing, she did not make a formal statement. She showed minimal emotion throughout the proceedings. Her demeanor during the trial was described as restrained, and she declined to testify in her own defense. Her attorney did not call any witnesses. Following her conviction, public response focused largely on systemic failures within child protective services. Torrey Hart, Eli's father, filed a lawsuit alleging that social workers ignored repeated warnings about Thaler's mental state and capacity to care for her child, As of 2025, Jullissa Thaler remains incarcerated at the Minnesota Correctional Facility, Shaerin. She has served just over 2 years of her life sentence. She was 29 years old at the time of the crime and will remain imprisoned for life without the possibility of release. Number 6. Elizabeth Archibeque. Elizabeth Archibeque was 29 years old when her son, 6-year-old Deshaun Martinez, was reported dead from severe starvation in their apartment in Flagstaff, Arizona. Elizabeth lived in an apartment shared with her partner, Anthony Martinez, their children, and Anthony's mother, Ann Martinez. The incident was reported to authorities on March 2, 2020, when Deshaun's grandmother, Ann Martinez, called 911 and stated that she believed her grandson was unresponsive and couldn't move. When the police officers from the Flagstaff Police Department arrived at the residence, they found Deshaun deceased and severely emaciated. He weighed only 18 pounds at the time of death. The detective who examined the scene described the conditions as some of the worst she had encountered in her career. She testified that Deshaun appeared to be only skin and bones, and that his brother's ribs and spine were clearly visible. An autopsy later confirmed that the boy had died from severe starvation. The death was ruled a homicide. Further investigation revealed that Deshaun and his older brother had been confined to a 21 by 25-inch closet for approximately 16 hours a day. According to statements from Archibeque and Anthony Martinez, the boys were punished in this manner because they would steal food during the night. The closet where he and his brother were confined smelled strongly of bad odor from urine, with only a piece of plastic on the floor to lie on. Initially, both parents claimed that Deshaun's condition was the result of a medical issue or from ingesting diet or caffeine substances. Later interviews with law enforcement contradicted this, as they later admitted to restricting the children's food and locking them in the closet. The couple stated the boys were allowed limited food and were punished for what they saw as bad behavior. The couple's 2 younger daughters, ages 4 and 2, were found in good health and had not been subjected to the same treatment. The brother who survived described the regular denial of food and long hours of confinement. He later displayed trauma-related behavior and was frequently asking when he would be allowed to eat and keeping snacks close at all times. Elizabeth was arrested and charged with first-degree murder, child abuse, and kidnapping. Her partner, Anthony Martinez, and his mother, Ann Martinez, were also charged in connection with the case. All 3 were to be tried separately. Anthony and Ann Martinez both pleaded not guilty. In May 2023, she entered a plea agreement with the prosecution. She pleaded guilty to first-degree murder and child abuse, avoiding a trial. Under the terms of her plea, she was ineligible for probation, parole, or work release. Her public defender, Christine Brown, argued that Elizabeth had experienced significant trauma in her life. She cited her substance addiction since birth, a history of abuse from her partner and mother-in-law, and an untreated mental health issues. The defense argued that she had been emotionally and physically controlled by Anthony and Ann and felt powerless to protect her children. As part of the agreement, she accepted the maximum sentencing parameters possible under Arizona law. The judge sentenced her to life in prison without the possibility of parole. The judge stated that the severity of the crime required that she spend the rest of her natural life in prison with no possibility of conditional release was granted. During her brief statement in court, she accepted responsibility and expressed remorse, stating that a huge part of her died, along with her beautiful child, that day. She did not deny her role in the abuse, nor did she attempt to deflect blame. In the sealed pre-sentencing documents, which were kept confidential to protect the privacy of the surviving children, details reportedly indicated that she felt more free in jail than she had while living with Anthony, her husband. She reportedly felt a sense of relief that her surviving children were now in safer environments. According to testimony from the foster mother caring for Deshawn's siblings, the trauma endured by the surviving children was extensive. The brother exhibited severe anxiety related to food and required constant reassurance. One sister reportedly took 3 years to speak again, while the other believed she had saved her brothers by carrying them on her back. Following her sentencing, she was transferred to the Arizona Department of Corrections and is currently housed at the Arizona State Prison Complex, Perryville, in the Lumley Unit, which houses female inmates serving long-term or life sentences. As of May 2025, Elizabeth Archibeque has served just over 1 year and 10 months of her life sentence and will never be released. Number 7. Gail Eastwood Geauga. On a cold March morning in 1993, 2 newspaper carriers stumbled upon a harrowing scene along Sidley Road in Thompson Township, Ohio. A garbage bag lay abandoned, torn open by animals, revealing the partially dismembered body of a boy, his umbilical cord still attached. The infant was known Geauga's child by the community, became the center of a decades-long mystery that haunted residents and law enforcement alike. Gail Eastwood Geauga was 22 years old, unmarried, and living in Euclid, Ohio, when she secretly gave birth to the baby in her bathroom. Overwhelmed by fear of her family's reaction, she placed the boy in a bag, stored it in her car trunk, and later discarded it in a wooded area. The child's body was discovered on March 25, 1993, but without leads, the case went cold. The community, unaware of the mother's identity, held a funeral for the child, naming him Geauga's child. In 2019, advancements in genetic genealogy led investigators to Geauga, who confessed to the crime. She also admitted to a similar act 2 years prior, where she disposed of another child in a field along Brush Avenue in Euclid. She later told investigators that she took the bag out of the trunk and laid it in the woods. She was arrested and charged with murder. In April 2022, Geauga stood trial in Geauga County. The jury found her guilty of murder, but acquitted her of aggravated murder. The court did not allow the jury to hear about the earlier incident due to concerns of prejudice. On May 24, 2022, Judge David Andre sentenced Geauga to life in prison with the possibility of parole after 15 years. Geauga did not make a statement during sentencing, and her attorneys indicated plans to appeal. As of April 2025, Geauga has served approximately 3 years of her sentence. She will be eligible for parole in 2037 at the age of 67. Upon release, she is required to register as a violent offender. Number 8. Hanna Payne. On May 7, 2019, a routine day in Clayton County, Georgia turned tragic when 24-year-old Hanna Payne took it upon herself to pursue and confront 62-year-old Kenneth Herring after witnessing him leave the scene of a minor traffic accident. Despite being advised by a 911 dispatcher not to engage, Payne followed Herring, leading to a fatal encounter that would alter both their lives irrevocably. Kenneth Herring, a retired postal worker, was involved in a minor collision with a semi-truck after reportedly running a red light. Witnesses, including a state corrections officer with medical training, observed that Herring appeared disoriented, suggesting he might have been experiencing a medical emergency, such as diabetic shock. Despite this, Payne, who was not involved in the accident, believed Herring was intoxicated and decided to follow him to obtain his license plate information for the authorities. During the 911 call, Payne was explicitly instructed not to pursue Herring. However, she disregarded these instructions, stating that he was drunk and she wasn't, and continued the pursuit. Upon catching up to Herring, Payne confronted him, leading to a physical altercation. Payne claimed that Herring grabbed her and that she drew her firearm in self-defense. During the struggle, the firearm discharged, fatally wounding Herring. In December 2023, after a 5-day trial, a jury found Hanna Payne guilty on multiple counts, including malice murder, felony murder, aggravated assault, false imprisonment, and possession of a firearm during the commission of a felony. The court sentenced her to life in prison with the possibility of parole after 43 years, accounting for additional consecutive sentences of 8 years for false imprisonment and 5 years for firearm possession. During the sentencing, Herring's family delivered emotional victim impact statements. His sister Jacqueline Herring expressed the family's grief, stating, "That door would never open again. I'll never see my brother again, only through pictures." The family requested a life sentence without the possibility of parole, emphasizing the irreversible loss they suffered. As of April 2025, Hanna Payne has served approximately 1.5 years of her 43-year minimum sentence. She will be eligible for parole at the age of 67. Number 9. Brenda Andrew. Brenda Andrew, a former Sunday school teacher and mother of 2, she was born and raised in Enid, Oklahoma. In a devout Christian household, she was known for her academic excellence and community involvement. She married Rob Andrew, an advertising executive, in 1984. The couple had 2 children and appeared to lead a stable family life. Over the years, their marriage had deteriorated, and Brenda had begun an affair with James Pavat, a former pastor turned insurance salesman. Together they plotted to murder Rob to collect an $800,000 life insurance policy that Pavat had sold to Rob. The plan was meticulous. Lure Rob to the house under the pretense of a family visit and stage the murder to look like a home invasion. On the day of the murder, Rob arrived at Brenda's home to pick up their children for a Thanksgiving visit. According to prosecutors, Brenda and Pavat lured him into the garage under the pretense of fixing the furnace. There he was ambushed and shot twice with a shotgun. Brenda sustained a superficial wound, which she claimed was inflicted by 2 masked intruders. However, investigators found inconsistencies in her story, and forensic evidence suggested her injury was self-inflicted to support the home invasion narrative. 9 days after the murder, Brenda and Pavat fled to Mexico with her children raising suspicions. They were arrested in February 2002 when they crossed back into Texas. Pavat confessed to the murder but claimed Brenda was not involved. Despite his confession, both were charged with Rob's murder. Brenda's 2004 trial was marked by sensationalism. Prosecutors introduced evidence of her intimate history, including testimony from past lovers, and even displayed her thong underwear to the jury, arguing that her lifestyle contradicted the image of a grieving widow. The defense argued that this evidence was irrelevant and prejudicial, but the jury found Brenda guilty of first-degree murder and conspiracy to commit murder, sentencing her to death. Brenda Andrew became the only woman on Oklahoma's death row. Over the years, her legal team filed multiple appeals arguing that the prosecution's focus on her personal life violated her right to a fair trial. In January 2025, the U.S. Supreme Court agreed, ruling that the introduction of prejudicial evidence about her intimate history rendered her trial fundamentally unfair. The court ordered a lower court to re-examine her case, potentially leading to a new trial or sentencing. As of April 2025, she has served approximately 21 years on death row. Number 10. Danielle Dauphinais. Danielle Dauphinais was 38 years old at the time of the incident, and she was a young mother residing in Merrimack, New Hampshire. She lived with her boyfriend, Joseph Stapf, their 2-year-old daughter, and her 5-year-old son, Elijah Lewis, from a previous relationship. Elijah had previously lived with his biological father, Timothy Lewis, in Arizona. In May 2020, Lewis sent Elijah to live with Dauphinais in New Hampshire, explaining that he was experiencing some challenges managing the boy's behavior. In the months that followed, Elijah's well-being began to deteriorate under his mother's care. By November 2020, medical professionals noted Elijah weighed just 32 pounds and had visible bruises on his face, eye, and arm. Despite these warning signs, no formal intervention ensured his protection. According to testimony later shared in court, Dauphinais and Stapf frequently expressed frustration with Elijah's behavior. Text messages between the two showed a pattern of hostility toward the child. In one message, Dauphinais wrote that Elijah asked her to stop starving him because it wasn't nice. In another, she claimed to have hit him with a shower rod. Stapf responded by suggesting she give Elijah more food to fatten him up. Prosecutors described the living environment as abusive and neglectful. Elijah was confined for long hours in a bathtub, sometimes unclothed and monitored by video. His weight dropped drastically. He reportedly became unable to stand and suffered injuries consistent with prolonged neglect, including facial and scalp trauma, pressure ulcers, and signs of malnutrition. Toxicology tests later revealed he had acute hard substance intoxication at the time of his death. Despite the alarming deterioration in Elijah's health, no comprehensive psychological evaluation was ever arranged. Both parents cited behavioral difficulties but failed to seek professional help. Dauphinais' legal team argued that she was overwhelmed by raising 2 children, pregnant, and struggling with substance use. She also alleged that her ex-husband did not provide insurance information needed to access care. By October 2021, Dauphinais gave birth to another child at home. Stapf brought the newborn to a hospital, reportedly intending to leave the infant there. Medical staff discovered evidence of substance exposure in the baby, which triggered an investigation by New Hampshire's Division for Children, Youth, and Families. During the investigation on the family, Dauphinais falsely claimed Elijah was living with her sister in California and later said he was with a family friend. Both individuals later confirmed they had not seen Elijah and that Dauphinais had asked them to lie about his whereabouts. Authorities believe Elijah died in September 2021, and Dauphinais and Stapf allegedly placed his body in a container and buried it in Ames Knoll State Park in Abington, Massachusetts. On October 17, 2021, the couple was arrested in New York, while Elijah was still reported missing. Days after their arrest, police located the remains of Elijah Lewis. The child, who stood 3 feet tall, weighed only 19 pounds. For comparison, the average 5-year-old typically weighs around 40 pounds and measures closer to 3.6 feet tall. Following the discovery of Elijah's body, both Dauphinais and Stapf were charged in connection to his death. In 2022, Joseph Stapf pleaded guilty to manslaughter, second-degree assault, witness tampering, and falsifying physical evidence. He received a sentence of 22 to 45 years in prison. Danielle Dauphinais initially prepared for trial in Nashua, New Hampshire, but entered a guilty plea in 2024 as part of a deal with prosecutors. She pleaded guilty to second-degree murder along with other related charges. Prosecutors recommended a 55-year sentence, while the defense sought the minimum of 35 years. On March 22, 2024, a judge sentenced her to 53 years to life in prison, with an additional 3 to 7 years for lesser offenses. During sentencing, the directly addressed the content of text messages sent by Dauphinais, describing them as hateful and explicit. He stated that she knew exactly what she was doing to Elijah, and she was murdering him day by day till he eventually gave up. In court, Dauphinais read from a written statement breaking down as she addressed her late son, stating that she was very sorry. She recounted her own experiences as a child who was abandoned and abused, offering this context as part of her explanation, but not as a defense. After sentencing, she did not display signs of resistance. As of May 2025, Danielle Dauphinais remains incarcerated at the New Hampshire State Prison for Women in Concord. She has served 1 year of her sentence. Having committed the crime at age 38, she will be eligible for parole no earlier than age 91, based on her 53 years to life sentence. Number 11, Jessy Kurczewski. On October 3, 2018, in Pewaukee, Wisconsin, a 911 call reported an unresponsive woman. The scene suggested a possible overdose with crushed medication found nearby. However, the truth behind Lynn Hernan's death would unravel into a chilling tale of betrayal and calculated murder. 40-year-old Jessy Kurczewski was a close friend of Lynn Hernan, a 62-year-old beautician known for her kindness and love for animals. Kurczewski had a history of financial troubles and prior convictions for forgery and misappropriation. She saw an opportunity in Hernan's generosity gradually gaining control over her finances. Investigations revealed that Kurczewski transferred nearly $290,000 from Hernan's accounts to her own funding lavish expenses, including a trip to Las Vegas. On the day of Hernan's death, Kurczewski called emergency services claiming she found Hernan unresponsive and suggested it was a personal harm. Authorities initially suspected an overdose due to the presence of crushed pills. However, toxicology reports later revealed high levels of toxic substance, the active ingredient in over-the-counter eye drops in Hernan's system. This led to the conclusion that Hernan had been poisoned. As the investigation progressed, discrepancies in Kurczewski's statements emerged. She initially claimed Hernan consumed the eye drops herself, then later suggested it was an assisted attack. Evidence showed Kurczewski had researched the effects of the toxic substance online, indicating premeditation. She was arrested on June 4, 2021, and charged with first-degree intentional homicide and 2 counts of theft. In November 2023, after nearly 11 hours of deliberation, a jury found Kurczewski guilty on all charges. The defense argued that Hernan's death was a self-inflicted, but the jury was unconvinced. On April 5, 2024, the judge sentenced Kurczewski to life in prison for the murder with eligibility for extended supervision after 30 years. Additionally, she received 2 consecutive 5-year sentences for the theft charges totaling 40 years before potential parole. The judge emphasized the need to protect the public, stating that Kurczewski would be nearly 80 years old before being considered for release. During sentencing, Kurczewski maintained her innocence and expressing her intent to appeal the conviction. She stated, "I will not stop fighting. As God as my witness, this case is far from over." As of April 2025, Jessy Kurczewski has served 1 year of her sentence. She remains incarcerated in a Wisconsin prison, with 39 years remaining. She will be 82 years old before she is eligible for parole. Number 12, Allison Fluke-Ekren. On November 1, 2022, Allison Fluke-Ekren, a 42-year-old former teacher from Kansas, was sentenced to 20 years in federal prison for her leadership role in the Islamic State, where she trained over 100 women and girls, including some as young as 10 years old, to use assault rifles, grenades, and belts. She trained them in combat tactics and explosives and plotted attacks against U.S. targets. She pleaded guilty to conspiring to provide material support to a foreign terrorist organization, marking one of the most significant cases involving an American woman in ISIS's hierarchy. Fluke-Ekren's actions went on for nearly a decade. Born and raised in Overbrook, Kansas, Fluke-Ekren pursued studies in biology and education. Fluke-Ekren's path to radicalization began in the early 2000s when she moved to the Middle East with her second husband, a member of the terrorist group Ansar al-Sharia. Together they supported extremist activities, including analyzing stolen U.S. documents from the 2012 Benghazi attack. By 2012, she had relocated to Syria, where her husband became an ISIS sniper leader. After his death in 2016, she married other ISIS operatives, further entrenching herself in the organization's activities. In Raqqa, ISIS's de facto capital, she founded and led the Katiba Nusayba, an all-female battalion, where she provided military training to women and girls, teaching them how to use different weapons. Her role was unprecedented, as women rarely held such positions within ISIS. In 2021, after years of evading capture, she was apprehended in Syria. After being detained in a Syrian prison for approximately 7 months, she was transferred to U.S. custody in January 2022. She was charged with providing and conspiring to provide material support to a foreign terrorist organization. In June 2022, she pleaded guilty to the charges against her. During the trial, prosecutors presented evidence of her leadership in the all-female battalion and her plans to conduct terrorist attacks on U.S. soil, including a proposed explosive attack of a shopping mall. Testimonies from her children revealed severe abuse. During the proceedings, her daughter testified that she had abused her and her siblings, including forcing her into marriage with an ISIS fighter at the age of 13. Prosecutors described Fluke-Ekren as the Empress of ISIS, highlighting her role in brainwashing young girls and training them to murder. Fluke-Ekren denied these allegations, portraying herself as a protective mother. The judge sentenced her to the maximum term of 20 years in federal prison, emphasizing the gravity of her actions and the trauma inflicted on her children. As of April 2025, she has served approximately 2 years and 5 months of her sentence. She is incarcerated in a federal facility with no possibility of parole. Number 13, Shannon C Bussan. On a quiet February afternoon in 2023, the serene town of Benton, Wisconsin, an 83-year-old woman named Lynn Montgomery was found lifeless in her home. The initial report suggested a tragic accident indicating a simple fall. But as the investigator dug deeper, a new revelation was uncovered. Shannon C Bussan was a 31-year-old mother from Elizabeth, Illinois. She was married to Lynn's grandson. She occasionally visited Lynn, assisting her with household tasks and errands. On February 27, 2023, Shannon called 911, claiming she found Lynn unresponsive after a fall. Lynn was pronounced dead at a Dubuque hospital. The following day, family members discovered handwritten notes in Lynn's home, pleading for help and accusing Shannon of harm. One note read, "Help, Shannon is hurting me," while another stated that Shannon had dragged her from the basement to try and get in her safe. These alarming messages prompted authorities to re-examine the case. Investigations revealed inconsistencies in Shannon's account. She claimed to have arrived at Lynn's home around 3:30 p.m., but geotagged data placed her there as early as 11:14 a.m. Surveillance footage and cell tower pings corroborated this earlier timeline. An autopsy unveiled multiple blunt force injuries on Lynn's head, face, and limbs, along with rib fractures. The cause of death was determined to be asphyxiation, possibly from smothering with a pillow. Further evidence included a draft email on Shannon's phone detailing a timeline of events and a browser search on how to unlock a 3-number combination safe. The safe, which contained valuables, had been moved from its usual location with drag marks found on the floor. On March 15, 2023, Shannon was arrested and charged with first-degree intentional homicide. Initially held on a $1 million bond, it was later reduced, and she posted bail in May 2023. Her trial commenced on November 4, 2024, at the Lafayette County Courthouse. The prosecution presented a compelling case, highlighting the handwritten notes, digital evidence, and inconsistencies in Shannon's statements. The defense argued that Shannon was being framed amidst family disputes. After deliberating for several hours, the jury found Shannon guilty of first-degree intentional homicide on November 8, 2024. On December 23, 2024, Shannon was sentenced to life in prison with the possibility of extended release after 22 years. As of April 2025, she has served approximately 4 months of her sentence. Given her birth year of 1993, Shannon will be eligible to petition for release in 2046 at the age of 53. Number 14, Makaylia Jolley. Makaylia Jolley was a young mother from Pearl, Mississippi, who had recently given birth to her daughter, Khaleesi. On May 12, 2022, under the influence of some hard substance that she had taken earlier that day, Jolley repeatedly and forcibly slammed her daughter into the concrete pavement. The assault occurred in the presence of multiple bystanders, including the baby's grandmother, an apartment owner, a truck driver, and a visiting nurse. The brutality of the act left onlookers traumatized, with Assistant District Attorney Catherine Newman stating that he don't believe anyone can ever get the images out of their mind. When authorities arrived, Jolley had fled into nearby woods. She was soon apprehended, and Khaleesi was transported to Children's of Mississippi in Jackson. Despite medical efforts, the child died to her injuries 2 days later, on May 14th. An autopsy revealed extensive skull fractures, internal swelling, hemorrhages in vital parts, and multiple other fractures. Following her arrest, Jolley was held at the Rankin County Jail. Initially, she was in solitary confinement for 6 months, but she was later moved to the general population, but continued to have a private cell at night for her protection. During police interviews, Jolley claimed she had accidentally hurt her baby and expressed confusion over her actions. However, when informed of her daughter's death, she became emotional and ceased cooperation with law enforcement. In November 2022, a Rankin County grand jury indicted Jolley on a capital murder charge. A mental evaluation conducted in May 2023 determined she was competent to stand trial. Facing the possibility of the death penalty, Jolley opted to plead guilty to capital murder. On November 6, 2023, Rankin County Circuit Judge Steve sentenced her to life imprisonment without the possibility of parole. In the courtroom, Jolley, dressed in a yellow jail jumpsuit, responded to the judge's questions with brief affirmations. As of April 2025, Jolley has served approximately 1.5 years of her life sentence. At 23 years old, she remains incarcerated in a Mississippi state prison with no possibility of parole. Given the nature of her sentence, she will spend the remainder of her life behind bars. Number 15. Iyanna Colon. On January 17, 2022, a seemingly ordinary dispute between 2 young lovers in Portage, Michigan, escalated into a tragic event that would alter lives forever. The argument, reportedly over a loud music, led to the death of 25-year-old Man Saleh Al-Blowi in the hands of his 21-year-old girlfriend, Iyanna Marie Colon. Iyanna Colon and Man Al-Blowi had been dating for approximately 2 months and had recently begun cohabiting in Al-Blowi's apartment at the Briargate complex in Portage. Their relationship, though brief, was marked by volatility. Colon had a documented history of violent behavior, including prior convictions for assaulting a police officer and another individual with a metal pipe in 2021. At the time of the incident, she was on probation for these offenses. According to Colon's account, the couple's argument over loud music escalated when Al-Blowi allegedly attacked her, dragging her by the hair and choking her to the point of unconsciousness. In response, Colon claimed she acted in self-defense by strangling Al-Blowi. After the altercation, she reportedly prayed over his body for over an hour, then moved his remains to a closet, covered them with a robe, and attempted to clean the scene to remove her fingerprints. She later slept on the apartment's mattress and later took a walk, stating that she was tired of looking at him. The following day, Colon informed her parents about the incident, who then accompanied her to the Portage Public Safety Headquarters to report the death. Authorities found Al-Blowi's body in the closet, and an autopsy confirmed death by mechanical asphyxiation. Colon was arrested and charged with open murder. During the trial, Colon maintained her claim of self-defense. However, the prosecution argued that the act was premeditated, highlighting her actions post-incident and her prior violent behavior. Despite certain admissions being excluded from evidence due to Colon's invocation of her right to counsel, the jury found her guilty of first-degree premeditated murder after a 3-day trial in August 2023. On September 5th, 2023 Colon was sentenced to life imprisonment without the possibility of parole, as Michigan law mandates for first-degree murder convictions. She is currently incarcerated at the Huron Valley Complex for Women. As of April 2025, Colon has served approximately 1 year and 7 months of her life sentence. Number 16. Cecily Agular. Cecily Agular was just 22 years old at the time of the incident, and she was a civilian living in Killeen, Texas. She worked at a local gas station and was the estranged wife of a former soldier stationed at Fort Hood. She became involved in a high-profile federal criminal case after aiding in the concealment of the murder of Army Specialist Vanessa Guillen, a 20-year-old soldier stationed at Fort Hood. On April 22, 2020, Specialist Vanessa Guillen disappeared from Fort Hood, Texas. She was last seen in the armory where she worked. Her car keys, barracks key, identification card, and wallet were discovered still in the armory. Before her disappearance, she had confided in her family about being sexually harassed by someone in her unit, although she had not filed an official complaint. Her disappearance drew widespread public attention, sparking protests and calls for reform within the U.S. military. A thorough search by the authorities was launched. During the investigation, it was discovered that the last person she had texted was another soldier, 20-year-old Army Specialist Aaron David Robinson, who was also stationed at Fort Hood. Investigation revealed that Robinson struck Guillen in the head with a hammer inside the armory room, and the hit led to her death. After the murder, he then placed her body in a large box and transported it to a remote site near the Leon River in Bell County, Texas. At Bell County, he then contacted Cecily Agular, his girlfriend at the time. Aguilar was also the wife of another former Fort Hood soldier. According to the investigation report, Robinson confessed the murder to Aguilar and brought her to the site where he had hidden Guillen's body. Over several days, Robinson and Aguilar returned to the scene to dismember and conceal the remains. Using a hatchet or axe and a machete-style knife, they took part of Guillen's body and attempted to burn it. They then placed the remains in 3 shallow graves, which they later attempted to cover with concrete. Aguilar also helped Robinson destroy data linked to a Google account and made multiple false statements to federal investigators during the early stages of the investigation. Authorities discovered Guillen's remains on June 30, 2020, near the Leon River, after a tip led investigators to the location. When the investigation into Guillen's disappearance intensified, Robinson fled the military. On July 1, 2020, as law enforcement closed in to arrest him, Aaron Robinson escaped custody and fatally shot himself with a firearm in Killeen, Texas. Aguilar was arrested shortly afterward. During the investigation, she initially denied knowledge of the crime, but she later confessed to assisting Robinson in disposing of Guillen's remains and providing misleading information to authorities. On November 29, 2022, at age 25, Cecily Agular pleaded guilty in federal court to 1 count of accessory to murder after the fact and 3 counts of making false statements or representations. She admitted to her role in the concealment and cover-up of Guillen's murder and in tampering with evidence. On August 14, 2023, Aguilar was sentenced to 30 years in federal prison by the U.S. District Court in Waco, Texas. She received the maximum penalty allowed under her charges. At sentencing, Aguilar did not display visible emotion. She did not speak at length, but expressed brief remorse in court. Her defense did not dispute the facts, but asked for leniency due to claims of manipulation by Robinson. Prosecutors, however, emphasized her full awareness of her actions and the extensive efforts made to hide the crime. The family of Vanessa Guillen was present during the sentencing. They did not directly address Aguilar in court, but expressed relief that legal justice had been served. The case led to widespread scrutiny of Fort Hood and resulted in significant military reforms. In December 2020, The U.S. Army disciplined more than a dozen officials after a report cited serious leadership failures and a toxic environment at the base. A new federal law named the I Am Vanessa Guillen Act took effect on January 1, 2022, mandating independent investigations for sexual harassment claims and removing prosecutorial decisions from commanders. As of March 2025, Cecily Agular has served nearly 2 years of her 30-year sentence in federal prison. She was 22 at the time of the crime and will be 52 years old by the time she is eligible for release, assuming she serves the full term. Number 17. Emile Weavers. On April 22, 2015, the serene halls of Muskingum University's Delta Gamma Theta sorority house in New Concord, Ohio, became the backdrop for a harrowing crime that would shock the community. Emile Weaver, a 21-year-old student and sorority member, became pregnant without anyone knowing till the moment she decided to give birth. Weaver's pregnancy had been a subject of speculation among her sorority sisters, with some noticing changes in her behavior and appearance. Despite this, Weaver denied being pregnant and took measures to conceal her condition. Prosecutors later revealed that she engaged in risky behaviors during her pregnancy, including consuming toxic drinks, smoking, and taking labor-inducing supplements suggesting an intent for termination of the pregnancy. On the morning of April 22nd, Weaver gave birth in a sorority house bathroom. She claimed to believe the baby was dead before being born, leading her to place the child in a bag and leave it outside. Later that day, sorority members discovered the bag, and upon inspection they found the deceased child. An autopsy confirmed that the baby had been born alive and died from asphyxiation. Weaver was arrested and charged with aggravated murder, abuse of a corpse, and tampering with evidence. During the trial, she testified that she was in denial about her pregnancy and believed the child was already dead at birth. However, the prosecution presented evidence, including text messages sent by Weaver after the birth stating, "No more baby," and "taken care of," which suggested a lack of remorse. In May 2016, Weaver was found guilty on all charges. During sentencing, she expressed remorse, stating, "I stand before you a broken-down woman asking for forgiveness and mercy." Despite the judge sentenced her to life in prison without the possibility of parole, citing her actions and perceived lack of genuine remorse. As of April 2025, Emile Weaver has served approximately 9 years of her life sentence. In 2022, the Ohio Supreme Court ruled that she should be resentenced due to ineffective counsel during her original sentencing, noting that her attorney failed to present a comprehensive explanation of neonaticide and pregnancy negation syndrome. A new judge has been assigned for the resentencing, but no date has been set. Number 18. Shaerin Rose Kelly. On July 10, 2020, in Bellevue, Washington, 30-year-old Shaerin Rose Kelly orchestrated a chilling murder-for-hire plot against her ex-husband, 48-year-old Baron Lee. As Lee approached his car at the Overlook at Lakemont Apartments, he was ambushed and shot 9 times by a 17-year-old assailant hired by Kelly. Miraculously, he survived the attack after enduring 15 months of rehabilitation. Kelly and Lee were in a bitter custody battle over their son, who has special needs. Court documents suggested that Kelly stood to gain financially if she obtained sole custody, although she later denied financial motives in her plea agreement. Following the attack, investigators discovered a tracking device on her husband's car, linking it back to Kelly. Further evidence, including online records, solidified her connection to the crime. Initially charged with first-degree attempted murder, Kelly eventually pleaded guilty to solicitation to commit murder in the second degree. On November 17, 2023, she was sentenced to 165 months, approximately 13.75 years, in prison. The judge emphasized that Kelly deserved a harsher sentence than the shooter since she orchestrated the brutal crime. As of April 2025, Kelly has served approximately 1.5 years of her sentence. Given her age at sentencing, she will be around 42 years old upon completing her term. The two teenagers involved also faced legal consequences. The shooter was sentenced for attempted murder and unlawful possession of a firearm, while the accomplice received a sentence for first-degree murder. Both were 17 at the time of the crime. Lee, reflecting on the ordeal, expressed that the sentence was insufficient, especially considering the impact on their son. He stated that, if it goes through and the judge goes along with a plea agreement, his son will only be 17 when she gets out of prison, and it's not enough time. Number 19. Pamela Smart. On a quiet spring evening in 1990, a young husband was found dead in his New Hampshire condo. He was shot execution-style in what appeared to be a botched burglary. But as investigators dug deeper, a web of seduction, manipulation, and betrayal unraveled, revealing a chilling plot orchestrated not by a stranger, but by the victim's own wife. The case captivated the nation, becoming one of the first televised trials and inspiring books and films that blurred the lines between fact and fiction. Pamela Smart, born Pamela Wojas, was a 22-year-old media coordinator at Winnicott High School in Hampton, New Hampshire. She was married to Gregory Smart, an insurance agent, and by all outward appearances, they were a young couple with a promising future. However, beneath the surface, their marriage was strained. Pamela began an affair with 15-year-old student William "Billy" Flynn, whom she met through a school program. The relationship quickly turned from inappropriate to deadly. On May 1, 1990, Greg Smart returned home to what he believed was an empty house. Instead, he was ambushed by Flynn and his friend Patrick Randall. According to court testimony, Randall held a knife to Greg's throat, while Flynn shot him in the head with a hollow-point bullet. The scene was staged to look like a robbery, but inconsistencies quickly led police to suspect foul play. As the investigation unfolded, authorities learned of Pamela's affair with Flynn. A key piece of evidence came from Cecilia Pierce, a teenage intern who wore a wire and recorded conversations with Pamela. In these recordings, Pamela made incriminating statements, stating that if she told the truth to anyone, they will send her to the slammer for the rest of her life. On August 1, 1990, Pamela Smart was arrested and charged with being an accomplice to first-degree murder, conspiracy to commit murder, and witness tampering. Pamela's trial began on March 4, 1991, and was one of the first to be broadcast live on television, drawing massive public interest. Prosecutors argued that Pamela seduced Flynn and manipulated him into murdering her husband to avoid a divorce and collect a $140,000 life insurance policy. Flynn testified against Pamela, stating that she threatened to end their relationship unless he murdered Greg. On March 22, 1991, the jury found Pamela guilty on all charges, and she was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. She is currently incarcerated at Bedford Hills Correctional Facility for Women in New York. Over the years, she has earned multiple degrees, including a doctorate in ministry, and has worked as a prison tutor and ordained minister. In 2024, after 34 years of maintaining her innocence, Pamela publicly accepted full responsibility for her husband's death in a videotaped statement expressing deep remorse for her actions. Despite this, her petitions for sentence reduction have been consistently denied. As of 2025, Pamela Smart has served 34 years of her life sentence. Now 57 years old, she remains incarcerated with no possibility of parole. Number 20. Taylor Schabusiness. Taylor Schabusiness had a troubled past marked by substance abuse and mental health struggles. She was in a tumultuous relationship with 24-year-old Shad Therian. Their bond was fueled by substance use and a shared penchant for extreme sexual activities. Friends and family noted the volatility of their relationship, but nothing could have predicted the horror that would unfold. On February 21, 2022, after consuming high level of hard substance, Bussan and Thyrion engaged in intimate activity at his mother's home. During the encounter, Bussan brutally strangled Thyrion with a chain and continued until he was lifeless. She then assaulted his corpse and proceeded to dismember his body, placing parts in various locations within the house and in a vehicle. The next day, Thyrion's mother discovered his severed upper body part in a bucket, leading to Bussan's arrest. During police interviews, she exhibited a disturbing lack of remorse, stating that she liked it, and expressing surprise at the amount of time it took to strangle Thyrion. She admitted to the acts, but pleaded not guilty by reason of mental disease or defect. In July 2023, a jury found Bussan guilty of first-degree intentional homicide, mutilating a corpse, and third-degree assault. Despite her insanity plea, the jury concluded she was of sound mind during the crime. The trial was marked by Bussan's erratic behavior, including an attack on her attorney during a court hearing. On September 26, 2023, Judge Thomas Walsh sentenced Bussan to life in prison without the possibility of parole for the homicide charge. She received additional consecutive sentences for the other charges, totaling over a decade. Judge Walsh described the crime as one that offends human decency. As of April 2025, Bussan is incarcerated at Taycheedah Correctional Institution. She has served approximately 1.5 years of her life sentence. Given her sentence, she will never be eligible for parole. Number 21, Bailey Marie Boswell. On November 15, 2017, 24-year-old Sydney Loof disappeared after going on a second Tinder date with 23-year-old Bailey Boswell in Wilbur, Nebraska. Her remains were not found until 3 weeks later, when they were discovered scattered in trash bags along a rural road. Bailey Boswell met Sydney Loof through the dating app called Tinder while using the fake name Audrey. On November 14, 2017, they went on a first date. Loof, who lived in Lincoln, Nebraska, appeared to enjoy the meeting and agreed to see Boswell again the following day. On November 15th, the next day, Loof posted a Snapchat photo with the caption, "Ready for my date." She also had confided her dating plans to friends. That night, she traveled to Wilbur, Nebraska, where Boswell was living with her older boyfriend known as Aubrey Trail in a basement apartment, and that was the last time she was heard from or seen alive. Cell phone data indicated and confirmed that her phone stopped transmitting in Wilbur around 8:30 p.m. before it was turned off. The next day, Loof failed to show up for work. Her mother, Susie, attempted to contact her without success and reported her missing. Police found her apartment undisturbed with her car, glasses, and personal items still inside. Her cat had not been fed. As police began tracking Loof's movements, they discovered Boswell had used a false identity. Investigators connected the two through Tinder records. A friend of Loof's, Brooklyn McChrystal, also helped by matching with Audrey on Tinder and obtaining a phone number which she gave to the police. Investigators quickly focused on Boswell using the information from Loof's friends to track her online alias and phone number. By November 28th, Boswell and Trail were identified as persons of interest. They released a Facebook livestream denying involvement in Loof's disappearance. In the video, Boswell claimed they drove around, did some smoking of hard substance, and that she had dropped Loof off at a friend's house. Trail then prayed and hoped for Loof's safety during the broadcast. Surveillance video and store receipts later revealed that Boswell and Trail purchased bleach, hacksaws, and trash bags shortly before Loof's disappearance. Investigators also noted a strong smell of bleach at the couple's apartment. The landlord reported that one of her family members became physically ill after entering the unit, and the air conditioning had been left on in cold weather. Despite the suspicious conditions, no immediate evidence of foul play was found inside the apartment. However, Trail and Boswell had already fled the state. On November 30th, they were later arrested in Branson, Missouri, on an unrelated fraud charges. At the time of arrest, they possessed maps, sleeping bags, and hiking equipment, suggesting they had been planning to flee to Mexico. Days later, between December 4th and 5th, 2017, authorities discovered Louf's remains along a gravel road near Edgar, Nebraska. Her body parts were wrapped in black bags along with clothing, intimate toys, and other personal items. Investigators were able to identify the remains as Louf's, but her upper left arm was never recovered. Boswell and Trail were charged with first-degree murder, unlawful disposal of human remains, and conspiracy to commit murder. Trail gave several inconsistent confessions. In some versions, he claimed sole responsibility for the murder. In others, he described a fatal choking incident during a consensual intimate encounter involving all three individuals. At one point, he told investigators he was producing intimate films involving strangulation. Authorities later stated they found no evidence to corroborate the film production claim. Boswell's trial began in 2020. The prosecution presented cell phone data, surveillance footage, and receipts showing all they had purchased before the murder. They also did not name a clear motive behind the murder, but argued that Boswell and Trail lured Louf under false pretenses with the intent to murder. They referenced the couple's history of using fake identities online to lure other women and Boswell's participation in recruiting partners for Trail. There was no evidence that Louf had agreed to any intimate activity beyond a typical date. The defense argued that Boswell was manipulated and controlled by Trail, who was older and more dominant. However, the jury found Boswell guilty on all counts, including first-degree murder. On November 8, 2021, Bailey Boswell was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. She became the first woman in Nebraska's history to receive such a sentence for murder. Unlike Trail, who was sentenced to death, Boswell was spared capital punishment. She showed little visible reaction during the sentencing hearing. Following her sentencing, Boswell was transferred to the Nebraska Correctional Center for Women in York, Nebraska. She also has stated in prior interviews that she did not murder Sidney Louf and was unaware of what Trail planned to do. She maintained that she was manipulated and did not participate in the murder or the acts that came after it. The court rejected these claims, citing strong physical and digital evidence connecting her to the planning and aftermath of the crime. As of March 2025, Bailey Boswell remains incarcerated at the Nebraska Correctional Center for Women. She has served approximately 3 years and 4 months of her life sentence. She is not eligible for parole and is expected to remain in prison for the rest of her life. Number 1. Shae Groves. On July 17, 2022, Shae Groves, a 27-year-old woman from Havant, Hampshire, England, fatally stabbed her boyfriend, 25-year-old Frankie Fitzgerald, over 22 times while he was asleep in her bedroom at her residence in Havant. The attack was described as a horrific one, with Fitzgerald sustaining significant injuries that led to his death at the scene. Their relationship was known as one fueled by obsession and very volatile. They shared mutual interests in true crime and had fascinations with criminals. Groves adorned her bedroom walls with framed pictures of notorious serial killers and murderers. She also had books about criminals, including the notorious prisoner Charles Bronson, and possessed a collection of decorative knives, one of which was used in the murder. On the day of the murder, the two lovers had set up a camera to film themselves in an intimate way before things got out of hand. After the murder, Groves didn't call the police. Instead, she cleaned up the scene a little, took some smokes, and called a friend over video chat, casually showing Frankie's lifeless body and confessing to the killing, stating that she had snapped and used the knife on him multiple times. She also shared 3 video clips suggesting that her boyfriend had assaulted her and was violent with her. The friend alerted the authorities, leading to Groves's arrest later that day. During the investigation, it was revealed that Groves had fabricated claims of Frankie's abusive behavior, presenting manipulated text messages and videos to support her allegations. However, evidence indicated that Groves had been tracking Frankie's movements and had acted out of jealousy after she discovered he had been messaging who she mistakenly thought was a 13-year-old girl on social media. The individual turned out to be 17 and had been blocked by her boyfriend before the incident. The original video clip she had sent to her friend was also retrieved, showing that her boyfriend never carried out any violent act on her. The trial took place at Winchester Crown Court, where Groves pleaded not guilty, claiming she acted in self-defense after being assaulted by Fitzgerald. The prosecution presented evidence of Groves's premeditation, including her interest in true crime and possession of weapons. They also found out that she was very familiar with crime scenes, how to create a false narrative, and how to set up a false alibi. She was a very dedicated serial killer fangirl. During her sentencing, Frankie's parents were heartbroken. They described him as the shining light, a kind and beautiful person. He was also a young father of 2 children who had his life in front of him. The jury found Groves guilty of murder, and on February 22, 2023, she was sentenced to life imprisonment with a minimum term of 23 years before being eligible for parole. During her sentencing, she remained expressionless as she received her sentence. As of April 2025, Shae Groves has served approximately 2 years of her 23-year minimum sentence. She is currently incarcerated in a UK prison with 21 years remaining before she can be considered for parole. Number 2, Natalie Bennet. On the evening of March 11, 2023, in Carr Lane East, Croxteth, Liverpool, neighbors reported hearing a heated argument between 47-year-old Natalie Bennet and her 24-year-old boyfriend, Casey Anderson, at her residence. Approximately an hour later, Casey, the boyfriend, was seen seeking help at a neighbor's door, visibly injured and distressed. He managed to contact emergency services, repeatedly stating he was dying, but was unable to specify who had harmed him due to the severity of his injuries. Natalie then took the phone, informing the operator that Casey had multiple stab wounds, but claimed ignorance about their origin, stating, "He's come in like that?" suggesting he arrived at her home already wounded. Upon arrival, Merseyside police officers found Casey with severe injuries, including a deep stab wound that affected his vital body parts, along with other superficial wounds. He was transported to Aintree Hospital, where he underwent surgery, but died of his injuries just a week before his 25th birthday. Natalie was arrested at the scene. During the investigation, authorities discovered inconsistencies in her account. Ring doorbell footage from a neighboring house showed Bennet wielding a knife near Casey's head, contradicting her claims that he arrived injured. Additionally, the interior of her home smelled strongly of cleaning fluids, and several sharp implements were found in the kitchen sink, appearing to have been recently cleaned. She was charged with Casey's murder and stood trial at Liverpool Crown Court. She pleaded not guilty, claiming self-defense and asserting that Casey had attacked her first. However, the jury found her account unconvincing. Evidence also emerged showing that she called the dying victim Little Rat as he was struggling on the street to call the 999 operator for help. On October 4, 2023, after deliberating for over 4 hours, the jury unanimously convicted her of murder. On November 10, 2023, she was sentenced to life imprisonment with a minimum term of 18 years before being eligible for parole. Judge Dennis Watson, K.C., remarked, "No sentence I can pass can restore Casey's life. His friends and family will always mourn his death. Your actions have caused the waste of a human life. Natalie showed no emotion as the sentencing was passed in the packed courtroom. When she was led to the cells, she gave a thumbs-up sign to her dad in the public gallery. As of April 2025, Natalie Bennet has served approximately 1 year and 5 months of her 18-year minimum sentence. Number 3, Sharon Carr. Sharon Louise Carr, also known as the Devil's Daughter, was just 12 years old when she committed the unprovoked and brutal murder of 18-year-old Katie Ratcliffe. Katie, an apprentice hairdresser, was walking home from a nightclub in Camberley, Surrey, England, when Carr selected her at random and attacked her, inflicting over 30 stab wounds that led to her death. After the attack, Sharon and some accomplice left her body abandoned near a cemetery. Katie's body was discovered the following day by young boys. Initially, the murder remained unsolved. The police thought the crime was committed by an adult male due to the nature of the body when it was discovered, and Carr was not apprehended. 2 years later, Carr attacked a fellow student inside a toilet at Collingwood College Comprehensive School, stabbing her without any reason. The attack stopped when students entered the toilet and intervened, leaving the victim severely injured. The victim said that Carr was smiling and appeared happy during the attack. This incident led to her arrest. She was initially taken to a hospital for medical assessment. There she also harassed and tried to murder the nurses attending to her. She was then transferred to a detention in a young offenders institution. While incarcerated, Carr boasted about Katie's murder during phone calls to relatives and documented her involvement in her prison diary entries. In one of such entries, she wrote, "If only I could do it to you again. I was born to be a murderer." Authorities questioned Carr on the murder, and she confessed to the crime. She even graphically described a particular injury and provided details that the police had deliberately withheld, meaning that she had knowledge that only the killer would have. On the 4th-year anniversary of the murder, she boldly wrote, "Respect to Katie Ratcliffe, 4 years ago today." With all her confessions and written evidence, authorities charged her with Katie Ratcliffe's murder. In March 1997, at the age of 17, she was officially declared Britain's youngest murderer. Carr was convicted and sentenced to life imprisonment with a minimum term of 14 years. The presiding judge remarked on the exceptional nature of the case, given her young age at the time of the offense. Carr was smiling as she left the dock after the conviction. As of April 2025, Sharon Carr has served approximately 28 years of her life sentence. Despite surpassing her minimum tariff by 14 years, she remains incarcerated due to concerns about her behavior and mental state. Reports indicate that Carr has exhibited violent tendencies while in prison, including fantasies about harming fellow inmates. Her applications for parole have been denied, with assessments deeming her too unstable for release. She is currently 45 years old. Number 4, Bailey Haywood. On March 13, 2024, at approximately 12:20 p.m., emergency services received a call reporting that a man had been injured at an address on Mullen Road in Bicester. Upon arrival, officers discovered 45-year-old Dale Bond in his lounge with multiple stab wounds. The attending officers immediately provided emergency treatment, and paramedics from South Central Ambulance and the Air Ambulance provided specialist emergency medical treatment. Despite immediate medical intervention, Mr. Bond was pronounced dead at the scene. After his death, the police then got an address in Bicester to locate the possible suspect. They immediately drove to the location on the address, and they discovered 23-year-old Bailey Haywood with blood-stained clothing. She was arrested on suspicion of murder. The Thames Valley Police Major Crime Unit initiated an investigation. An autopsy confirmed that Mr. Bond's death was caused by a stab wound, leading to Bailey's conviction for murder. During her trial, her defense argued that she acted in self-defense, but the jury completely rejected arguments stating that there is no evidence to suggest that Mr. Bond attacked Haywood. The precise motives for the murder remain unclear to this day, as Bailey is the only person who could say why she carried out the act. But she has chosen not to speak about it, following her trial at Oxford Crown Court. The jury found her guilty, and she was sentenced to life imprisonment with a minimum term of 17 years and 181 days. As of April 2025, Bailey Haywood has served approximately 6 months and 18 days of her minimum term. She will be eligible for parole consideration in December 2041 when she reaches the age of 41. Number 5. Jemma Mitchel. 38-year-old Jemma Mitchel moved to the UK from Australia with her mother and sister after her parents' separation. She earned a first-class degree in human sciences from King's College London, where she excelled in anatomy. During her training, she learned how to dissect the human body. She was so good with the skill that she was awarded the Hamilton Prize for Anatomical Excellence. Despite her qualifications, Mitchel was not registered to practice osteopathy in the UK and remained unemployed after 2015. She lived with her mother and sister in a dilapidated £4 million family home in Willesden, northwest London. She also had a very strained relationship with her sister and has been charged one time for an act against her. After a while, Mitchel and her mother then decided to renovate their home, but they found out that they had been defrauded of £230,000 by builders they hired for renovations. In August 2020, Mitchel met and befriended 67-year-old Mi Kuen Chong at their church. Chong, originally from Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia, had lived in London for 30 years and suffered from mental health issues. Some of the church members described her as an adult, having a sweet and childlike nature. Chong had agreed to give Mitchel £200,000 to assist with the home renovation, and they both exchanged numerous chat messages on the subject. But Chong later withdrew her offer and urged Mitchel to sell the house and enjoy the money instead. This withdrawal led to a fatal confrontation. On June 11, 2021, Mitchel visited Chong's residence in Wembley, carrying a large blue suitcase. It is believed that during this visit, Mitchel murdered Chong and placed her into the suitcase. Afterwards, she stole documents from Chong's house. She later tried to use the documents to forge a will indicating that Chong left her $700,000 estate to her. She then transported the suitcase back to her home, storing it in her garden for 2 weeks. On June 26th, Mitchel hired a car and drove over 200 miles to Salcombe, Devon, where she disposed of Chong's body in a wooded area. Part of the body was discovered by holidaymakers the following day, and the other part was found nearby 4 days later. Before the body was found, Chong was reported missing by her lodger. Mitchel initially told the police that Chong had gone to visit her family friends by the sea. However, CCTV footage captured Mitchel entering Chong's home with the suitcase and leaving hours later with it appearing heavier. Further evidence, including the forged will, showing that Chong had left 95% of her estate in her care to use for the completion of her house project, and the remaining 5% willed to her mother, implicated Mitchel. She was arrested and charged with murder. Mitchel's trial began on October 11th, 2022, at the Old Bailey. She pleaded not guilty, but the jury found her guilty after deliberating for 7 hours on October 28th, 2022. Judge Richard Marks KC sentenced her to life imprisonment with a minimum term of 34 years, describing her actions as extremely devious and highlighting her lack of remorse. As of April 2025, Jemma Mitchel has served approximately 2 years and 6 months of her 34-year minimum sentence. She remains incarcerated in a UK prison and will be eligible for parole in October 2056 when she is 72 years old. Number 6. Virginia McCullough, 31-year-old. Virginia McCullough was living with her parents in their family home in Chelmsford, Essex, when she carried out the brutal act on them. Her parents were getting old and were in a poor condition, making her their primary caregiver. In June 2019, Virginia, who had squandered her parents' money and was in a huge debt, prepared a cocktail of prescription substances and added it to the drinks she gave to her 70-year-old father, John, and her 71-year-old mother, Lois. Her father took the drink and passed away while sleeping, while her mother did not take the drink. The following day, she found out that her mother, who didn't take the drink, was still alive, sleeping in her bed without noticing what had happened to her husband. Fearing that her mother would find out what she had done, she attacked her using a hammer and subsequently used a knife on her multiple times, resulting in her death. After the incident, she went to a local hospital to receive treatment for the wounds she suffered while carrying out the act. Then she proceeded to buy items that she used to conceal her crimes. She meticulously concealed their bodies within the residence. John's remains were placed in a makeshift tomb constructed from masonry blocks and wooden panels, while Lois's body was hidden in an upstairs wardrobe. Prior to the murders, McCullough had accumulated significant debts, over $60,000, and was engaged in fraudulent activities involving her parents' finances. She had been misappropriating funds from their accounts, and, following their deaths, she continued to collect their pensions and use their credit cards. She even disguised as her mother and demanded for a new credit card and PIN from her bank. She also impersonated her father in communications to maintain the facade that they were still alive. Her gambling addiction heightened her financial situation, leading her to spend substantial sums on online betting platforms. In total, she squandered over £150,000. The deception came to an end in September 2023, when concerns from family members and medical professionals about the prolonged absence of John and Lois prompted a welfare check by Essex police. Virginia lived with the dead bodies of her parents for over 4.5 years without her siblings noticing. Upon entering the residence, officers discovered the concealed bodies. Virginia was arrested at the scene, and during her apprehension, she said to the officers, "I did know that this day would come eventually. Cheer up, at least you've caught the bad guy." She was charged with 2 counts of murder, and she pleaded guilty in July 2024. The presiding judge highlighted the premeditated nature of the crimes and the gross violation of parental trust. Few months later, she was sentenced to life imprisonment with a minimum term of 36 years before being eligible for parole. As of April 2025, Virginia McCullough has served approximately 6 months of her life sentence. She remains incarcerated with a minimum of 35 years and 6 months remaining before parole consideration. Number 7. Lucy Letby. Between June 2015 and June 2016, the neonatal unit at the Countess of Chester Hospital in Cheshire, England, experienced an unusual spike in infant deaths and sudden collapses. Medical staff became concerned about the unexpected nature of these incidents. An internal review identified 33-year-old Lucy Letby as the only nurse present during all the events in question. Consultant pediatricians raised their suspicions to hospital management, but initial actions were not carried out. It wasn't until May 2017 that the hospital reported the concerns to the Cheshire Constabulary, prompting a formal police investigation. The investigation, known as Operation Hummingbird, was launched. It involved a detailed review of infant medical records and autopsy reports. Investigators discovered patterns suggesting harm, including injections of air and insulin, overfeeding, and physical assaults. Lucy, the primary suspect, was then arrested, but she was released on bail and subsequently rearrested in June 2019 and November 2020 as more evidence emerged. Lucy's trial began in October 2022 at Manchester Crown Court. The prosecution presented evidence of her involvement in the deaths of 7 children and the attempted murders of 6 others. In August 2023, the jury found her guilty on all counts. She was sentenced to life imprisonment without the possibility of parole, making her one of the few women in UK history to receive such a sentence. Recently, a new development has emerged suggesting that Lucy may have harmed more children than those for which she was convicted. As of April 2025, Lucy Letby has served approximately 1 year and 8 months of her life sentence. Given her whole life order, she will remain incarcerated for the rest of her life. Number 8. Karen Vamplew. In the early hours of December 15, 2021, a tragic event unfolded in Newark, Nottinghamshire, resulting in the death of 77-year-old Elizabeth Ann Vamplew. Elizabeth Vamplew was a vulnerable elderly woman with limited mobility and hearing impairments. She required daily visits from caregivers and was known for taking cigarettes inside her bungalow at Eaton Court. Her daughter-in-law, 44-year-old Karen Vamplew, who was her primary caregiver, had accumulated significant debts and had been illicitly accessing funds from her bank account. She drained her account from £27,000 to £105 in months. When the bank restricted transactions to £5 due to suspicious activities, Karen's access to these funds was effectively cut off. On December 14, 2021, Karen accompanied Elizabeth to the bank in an attempt to remove the transaction restrictions. Later that night, Karen visited Elizabeth's home twice. During her first visit, CCTV showed that she had parked outside, not near her mother-in-law's house, wearing a black hoodie. She went in and deliberately set fire to Elizabeth's bed while she was asleep, using a naked flame. She then left the premises, only to return later to feign discovery of the fire and contact emergency services. Despite rescue efforts, Elizabeth succumbed to severe burns and smoke inhalation injuries. Initial suspicions arose due to the nature of the fire and Karen's financial motives. Investigators determined that the fire was intentionally started, ruling out accidental causes such as a dropped cigarette. CCTV footage captured Karen's movements to and from the crime scene, though she claimed that she forgot her keys and went back to her car to retrieve it. She also said she tried to save Elizabeth's life when she got to her house, but was pushed back by the heavy smoke. Karen was first arrested on December 17, 2021, but was released due to insufficient evidence. However, after further investigation and gathering of substantial evidence, she was rearrested years later. The trial commenced at Leicester Crown Court, where the prosecution presented compelling evidence of Karen's premeditated actions driven by financial gain. The jury found her guilty of murder, and on May 20, 2024, she was sentenced to life imprisonment with a minimum term of 32 years before eligibility for parole. As of April 2025, Karen Vamplew has served approximately 11 months of her life sentence. Number 9. Mahek Bukhari and Ansrain Bukhar. 46-year-old Ansrain Bukhari, the mother of the 24-year-old popular social media influencer Mahek Bukhari, had been having an extramarital affair with 21-year-old Saqib Hussain. She decided to end the affair. Unwilling to accept the termination of their relationship, Saqib allegedly threatened to expose her explicit material and videotapes to her husband, aiming to coerce her into continuing the affair. In response to these threats, Mahek and her mother, Ansrain, devised a plan to confront Saqib and retrieve any compromising material. In one of their messages, Mahek told her mother, "I'll get him jumped by guys and he won't know what day it is." She also boldly told the victim, "I am sorry that this year you'll be gone, Saqib." They lured Saqib to a meeting under the pretense of handing over £3,000, an amount he claimed to have spent during the relationship. Unknowing to Sakib, Mahek and Ansreen had recruited the help of 5 associates: 27-year-old Rakan Karwan, 23-year-old Rais Jamal, 23-year-old Natasha Akhtar, 28-year-old Amir Jamal, and 23-year-old Sanaf Gula Mustafa to assist in their plan. On the night of the meeting, Sakib, accompanied by his friend, 21-year-old Mohammed Hashim, arrived at the designated meeting point in a Tesco car park in Leicester. Upon realizing that they had been set up and there was potential danger, the 2 men attempted to flee in their Skoda Fabian vehicle. A high-speed chase ensued, with the pursuing vehicles reaching speeds of up to 100 miles per hour. During the chase, Sakib made a desperate 999 call, reporting that they were being followed by individuals in balaclavas who were attempting to ram them off the road. Tragically, while still on the call, their vehicle was forced off the road, collided with a tree, and burst into flames, resulting in the immediate deaths of both men. After the crash, Mahek and her mother refused to call the police and sped off. A driver passing by came across the 2 friends and decided to call emergency services. Following the fatal crash, an extensive investigation was launched by Leicestershire Police. Evidence, including CCTV footage and mobile phone data, implicated Mahek, Ansreen, and their accomplices in orchestrating the deadly pursuit. During the investigation, Mahek was seen lying to the police about their whereabouts the previous day. The group was subsequently arrested and charged with murder. After a 3-month trial at Leicester Crown Court, Mahek Bukhari was found guilty of 2 counts of murder and was sentenced to life imprisonment with a minimum term of 31 years and 8 months. Her mother, Ansreen Bukhari, was also sentenced to life imprisonment with a minimum term of 26 years and 9 months. Their accomplices each got different sentences. As of April 2025, Mahek Bukhari has served approximately 1 year and 7 months of her life sentence. Number 10, Veronique John. On June 10, 2023, in Stoke-on-Trent, England, the emergency operator received a call from 50-year-old Veronique John saying that she had just murdered her children. A day before she made the call, Veronique had assaulted her husband, Nathan John, with a piece of wood after suspecting that he was having an affair. She was arrested but released the following day with a community resolution notice. Hours after her release, she attacked her children, 11-year-old Ethan and 7-year-old Elizabeth, at their home on Flax Street. Ethan sustained over 20 stab wounds, while Elizabeth suffered severe injuries. Both children were pronounced dead at the scene. After the attack on her children, Veronique proceeded to a car wash on Campbell Road, where Nathan, her husband, was employed, and also used the knife on him. Despite his injuries, Nathan survived. After returning home, Veronique contacted emergency services. When the police arrived, she told them, "If you have a gun, shoot me. I am not a monster. He was going to take them from me." Veronique was arrested at the scene. Investigations revealed that her marriage with her husband had been a toxic one, as they usually had arguments now and then. Veronique confessed that she carried out the act on her children because her husband wanted to take them from her. Police also revealed that she made the decision after making a chilling internet search, asking, "Can a foreigner be charged with murder in the UK?" She also confessed to the crime, saying, "I did it because I love my children, to protect the children. If there's any possible way I could be put to death, I would like that. I mean it 100%. Due to diagnoses of complex post-traumatic stress disorder, she was deemed unfit to plead or participate in a standard trial. Consequently, a trial of facts was conducted at Nottingham Crown Court. In July 2024, the jury concluded that Veronique had committed the acts as charged. She was given an indefinite hospital order under the Mental Health Act and is currently held at Rampton High Security Hospital in Nottinghamshire. As of April 2025, she has served approximately 9 months of this order. The duration of her confinement depends on assessments of her mental health and the risk she may pose. Number 11. Ashana Studholme. 35-year-old mother of 2, Shakira Spencer was a woman who lived in Ealing, West London. She was described as a beautiful, happy, healthy woman before her life took a devastating turn upon befriending her neighbor, Ashana Studholme. Her neighbors recounted that Shakira was a lovable person, but socially awkward, who presented as someone with learning difficulties. After she became friends with a supposed friend, Studholme introduced her to her partner Sean Pendlebury and her friend Lisa Richardson. Over time, the 3 friends introduced Shakira to the use of hard substances and started exerting control over her. They isolated her from her family and friends and subjected her to severe abuse. Between early 2021 and September 2022, Shakira endured relentless physical and psychological torment. The trio treated her as a servant, forcing her to perform menial tasks at all hours. They controlled her finances, depriving her of basic necessities and feeding her only ketchup sachets, leading to significant weight loss from a size 16 to a size 6. The abuse escalated to physical torture, including scalding her feet and other inhumane treatments. On September 12, 2022, after a particularly brutal assault at Studholme's residence, Shakira was transported in the trunk of a car to her own flat, where she was confined to a cupboard and left to die. Approximately 2 weeks later, on September 25, 2022, neighbors noticed maggots emerging from under her front door and alerted authorities. Upon entry, police discovered her body, necessitating identification through dental records. The extent of decomposition made it impossible to determine the exact date of death. After the discovery, Studholme, Pendlebury, and Richardson were arrested after the police were contacted by a relative of Pendlebury's to whom he had confessed his role in the killing. They were charged with murder and preventing a lawful burial. During the trial at the Old Bailey, evidence presented included messages and videos showing the abuse, highlighting the trio's sadistic pleasure in inflicting pain. In December 2023, all 3 were found guilty on both charges. In February 2024, Studholme, Pendlebury, and Richardson were each sentenced to life imprisonment with a minimum term of 34 years. As of April 2025, they have served approximately 1 year and 2 months of their sentences, with eligibility for parole in 2058. Number 12. Christina Robinson. 30-year-old Christina Robinson, a mother from Ushaw Moor near Durham, was convicted of the murder of her 3-year-old son, Dwellania Robinson, after a harrowing series of abusive incidents that culminated in his death. In the weeks leading up to her son's death, Christiana subjected him to severe physical abuse under the guise of religious discipline, adhering to teachings from the Black Hebrew Israelites that advocated corporal punishment. This included striking him with a cane for minor misbehaviors. Around 18 days before his death, Christiana forced him into using very hot water to bathe as punishment for soiling himself, resulting in extensive body injuries covering over 20% of his body, particularly on his lower part. Despite the severity of these injuries, she did not seek medical attention. Instead, she resolved to treating him with ointments and bandages purchased online. Her failure to obtain proper medical care left Dwellania in significant pain and vulnerable. Few days later, she carried out another attack on him, which left him in a very critical condition. Emergency services were called to their residence on Bracken Court, but despite their efforts, her son was pronounced dead. After Dwellania's death, an investigation revealed that he had over 60 wounds, and there was a pattern of ongoing abuse. Christina admitted to using a cane to discipline her son, claiming she believed it was a form of correction endorsed by her religious beliefs, which preached using a rod to correct a child. She expressed regret, stating she now realized she had been misguided. She also said that she couldn't seek medical attention for her son because she was ashamed. She was charged with murder and 4 counts of child cruelty, including the hot bath incident, failure to seek medical help, physical punishment with a cane, and leaving her son home alone for extended periods. During her trial at Newcastle Crown Court, she dismissed her legal team and represented herself in the final stages. The jury found her guilty on all charges. In May 2024, she was sentenced to life imprisonment with a minimum term of 25 years. As of April 2025, Christina Robinson has served approximately 11 months of her life sentence. Number 13, Stephanie Langley. On the evening of September 11, 2023, in Maidstone, Kent, a tragic event unfolded outside the Hare and Hounds public house. Matthew Bryant, the pub's landlord, was inside his pub attending to his customers when he was fatally attacked by his former sister-in-law, 55-year-old Stephanie Langley. Stephanie and Bryant had been related through marriage, but had minimal contact for over 2 decades. Their paths crossed again in March 2023 when Langley visited the Hare and Hounds pub. On the day of the incident, Stephanie returned to the pub. Witnesses reported that she boldly told a customer, "Get a drink while he is still alive," referring to Bryant. She also directly threatened Bryant, stating, "You're dead tonight." These statements prompted Bryant to step aside and started contacting the police. After leaving the pub briefly, Stephanie retrieved a kitchen knife from her car and returned to confront Bryant, who was still on the phone with emergency services. She knocked the phone from his hand and proceeded to use the knife on him 3 times. Bryant was able to tell the 999 operator that he had been stabbed and severely injured. Despite immediate efforts by passers-by and paramedics, Bryant died to his injuries at the scene. Stephanie was arrested shortly after the incident. During police interviews, she expressed no remorse, reportedly stating, "I'm glad he's dead." She claimed that Bryant had assaulted a woman she knew, but Bryant and his family denied such accusations. She was charged with murder and possession of a bladed article. During the trial at Maidstone Crown Court, the prosecution described the attack as impulsive, irrational, but deliberate and intentional. Stephanie attempted to justify her actions by bringing up past grievances against Bryant, but these claims were contested and unproven. During her trial, Bryant's widow and his mother read their victim impact statement with tears in their eyes, expressing how they have lost their loved one. In May 2024, Stephanie was convicted of murder and sentenced to life imprisonment with a minimum term of 24 years before being eligible for parole. As of April 2025, she has served approximately 11 months of her sentence. Number 14, Eltiona Scana. On March 22, 2020, which was a Mother's Day celebration in the UK, 7-year-old Emily Jones was in Queen's Park, Bolton, Greater Manchester with her father, Mark Jones, and her mother, Sarah Barnes. She noticed her mother jogging nearby and decided to move to where she was. Emily mounted her scooter trying to move as she scooted past a wooden bench where 30-year-old Eltiona Scana, an Albanian woman who was granted asylum in the UK, was seated. Calling out to her mother, Scana suddenly attacked her and brutally used a craft knife she had purchased earlier that day on her multiple times. Emily was rushed to Salford Royal Hospital, but tragically she passed away. After the attack, Scana tried to run, but was detained by the people around until the police arrived and arrested her. During police interviews, it was revealed that she had a documented history of mental illness and had not been adhering to her prescribed medications. It was also revealed that she came to the UK from Albania in the back of a lorry and had lied in her asylum application documents. Initially charged with murder, Skåne later pleaded guilty to manslaughter on the grounds of diminished responsibility. In December 2020, she was sentenced to life imprisonment with a minimum term of 8 years to be served in a high-security hospital. However, in January 2021, this minimum term was revised to 10 years and 8 months due to a sentencing miscalculation. Skåne sought to appeal both her sentence and the minimum term, arguing for a hospital order with restrictions instead. The court dismissed her appeal, upholding the original sentencing decisions. Following her sentencing, Mark Jones, the father of the victim, stated through his lawyer that Skåne had been given asylum in the UK, despite the Home Office being told she admitted lying in her application, and she wouldn't have been in the UK if they had done their jobs. As of April 2025, Skåne has served approximately 4 years and 4 months of her sentence, with a minimum of 6 years and 4 months remaining. Alice Wood. In the evening of May 6, 2022, Alice Wood, a 24-year-old philosophy student from Cheadle, Staffordshire, and her fiancé, 24-year-old Ryan Watson, attended a birthday party in Hanley, Stoke-on-Trent, for a service user of the brain injury charity Headway, where Ryan worked as a support worker. During the event, witnesses observed tension between the couple when Mr. Watson engaged in a conversation with another woman, leading to accusations of flirting from Alice. During the party, both had consumed high levels of alcohol, and when they prepared to go home, Alice decided to drive them home, despite being over the legal limit. Upon arriving at their residence in Road Heath, Cheshire, around 11:20 p.m., the situation escalated. They started having an argument. CCTV footage revealed that after the argument, Alice used her Ford Fiesta vehicle to deliberately drive at Ryan multiple times. Initially, she reversed towards him, narrowly missing. She then drove at him again, causing him to be thrown onto the bonnet and strike his head on the windscreen. Despite this, she proceeded to drive at him a third time, dragging him approximately 158 meters under the vehicle. Upon stopping, she then sought help from a nearby resident, stating, "Please phone an ambulance, I think I've run over my boyfriend." Emergency services arrived promptly, but Mr. Watson was pronounced dead at the scene, with the cause of death determined as crush asphyxiation. Alice was found to have over 61 micrograms of alcohol per 100 milliliters of breath, exceeding the legal limit of 35. She was arrested on suspicion of murder, and during her transportation to the police station, she remarked, "It's fine, I deserve it." She was subsequently charged with murder. During her trial at Chester Crown Court, she maintained that the incident was a tragic accident and expressed remorse. However, the court found her guilty, concluding that her actions were intentional. On February 2, 2024, she was sentenced to life imprisonment with a minimum term of 18 years before being eligible for parole. During her sentencing, the presiding judge told her, "Prison may be hard for you, Alice Wood, but you only have yourself to blame for the situation you now find yourself in." At the time of the incident, Wood was preparing for her final exams at Manchester University and had been awarded a scholarship for a part-time research master's at Cambridge. As of April 2025, Alice Wood has served approximately 1 year and 2 months of her life sentence. Lauren Harris. In the early hours of November 20, 2023, in Colwyn Bay, Conwy County, North Wales, a tragic and brutal crime unfolded, leading to the death of 65-year-old David Mark Wilcox. Lauren Harris, then 29 years old, who had no fixed home address, but originally from Colwyn Bay, along with her accomplice, 43-year-old David Webster from Lacey Street, were central figures in this harrowing event. Lauren Harris had moved in with Mr. Wilcox at his residence on Bayview Road earlier in 2023. Their friendly relationship, which began around mid-2023, was marked by Mr. Wilcox's generosity and desire to support Harris in turning her life around. However, this relationship took a dark turn as Harris drained Mr. Wilcox's bank account over the months they lived together. In the days leading up to the incident, Harris met and started a relationship with David Webster and befriended Thomas Whiteley. On the evening of November 19, 2023, Harris invited Webster and Whiteley to Mr. Wilcox's home for drinks and to smoke. An argument started during the gathering, escalating into a violent assault against Mr. Wilcox. Before the situation could be resolved, Lauren Harris used a knife on Mr. Wilcox twice, while David Webster inflicted additional violence, including hitting Mr. Wilcox with a vodka bottle. The attack was so brutal and vicious, leaving Mr. Wilcox with severe injuries, including multiple stab wounds. After the assault, Webster forcefully took off Mr. Wilcox's watch from his wrist, and the trio then fled the scene in the victim's Volvo vehicle, leaving him unconscious in his living room, where police discovered him shortly after. Harris then attempted to use Mr. Wilcox's bank cards at 2 ATMs to withdraw cash to pay for hard substance. After withdrawing the money, they then drove away and subsequently crashed the car moments later. They abandoned the vehicle. Despite immediate medical attention, Mr. Wilcox died of his injuries later that day. Following the discovery of Mr. Wilcox's body, North Wales police launched an investigation that quickly led to the arrest of Harris, Webster, and Whiteley later. During the investigation, it was revealed that Harris decided to murder the victim because his money, which she was spending, was now drained. She was charged with murder alongside her accomplices. During the trial, Harris denied involvement, but evidence presented, including DNA tests linking Webster to the weapons and CCTV footage of Harris's attempts to withdraw money, painted a damning picture. The trial took place at Mold Crown Court and concluded on August 8, 2024, with Harris and Webster being found guilty of murder. At one point during her trial, as she was led into the dock, Harris started singing Shania Twain's song, "Man, I Feel Like a Woman." She showed no remorse for the crimes she committed. Various evidence also revealed that she had a history of violence against men. On August 12, 2024, Mr. Justice Edward Pepperell sentenced Lauren Harris to life imprisonment with a minimum term of 25 years before eligibility for parole. David Webster received a life sentence with a minimum term of 23 years. The judge highlighted the brutality and senselessness of the murder, noting the abuse of Mr. Wilcox's trust and the lack of remorse from both defendants. As of April 2025, Lauren Harris has served approximately 8 months of her life sentence. She will be 54 years old before she will be eligible for parole. Rebecca Moore. In the early hours of March 9, 2024, at approximately 4 a.m., 24-year-old Saakad Ali was relaxing at a friend's flat in the Netherthorpe area playing video games when he received a call from an unknown number. The caller was 25-year-old Rebecca Moore. She persuaded him to meet her at Ponderosa Park under the pretense of purchasing some hard substance and offering her services. Unknowingly to Mr. Ali, this was a setup. Upon his arrival, he was ambushed by 2 teenagers, 17-year-old Barney Griffin and 16-year-old Jack Douglas. Armed with machetes, they launched a brutal and relentless attack on Mr. Ali, who pleaded for them to stop. Despite his cries, the assault continued, leading to his death shortly after 5 a.m. Following the discovery of Mr. Ali's body, South Yorkshire Police initiated an intensive investigation. Witnesses provided descriptions of the attackers, which matched clothing found at Griffin's residence. Forensic evidence, including blood near Oxford Street linked to Griffin, and CCTV footage tracking the movements of the perpetrators, further implicated the trio. Moore was apprehended shortly after the incident. In an attempt to evade arrest, she provided officers with a false name and date of birth. However, her deception was short-lived, as officers quickly confirmed her identity and arrested her on suspicion of murder. Griffin and Douglas surrendered to the authorities on March 12, 2024. They both pleaded guilty to murder and possession of a bladed article in May 2024. Moore, however, denied the charges, leading to a 16-day trial at Sheffield Crown Court. She subjected the family of the victim in pain of appearing in the court severally instead of admitting her guilt. On November 11, 2024, the jury found her guilty of murder. Subsequently, on November 28, 2024, the court sentenced Moore to life imprisonment with a minimum term of 15 years before eligibility for parole. Griffin received a 16-year sentence, while Douglas was sentenced to 15 years. As of April 2025, Rebecca Moore has served approximately 5 months of her 15-year minimum term. She will be 40 years before being considered for parole. Lisa Elwood. In the late evening of August 29, 2023, a tragic incident unfolded in the Agbrigg area of Wakefield, West Yorkshire, leading to the untimely death of 42-year-old Ryan Elwood. On the night in question, 40 years old Lisa and Ryan, her husband, had been out celebrating her 40th birthday. They began their evening at the Loopset Hotel before proceeding to Wakefield City Centre, where they continued drinking at the Blind Pig pub. Lisa consumed multiple high-alcohol cocktails during the night. CCTV obtained from the pub showed both of them appearing to be happy and in high spirits when they arrived. But at some point during the evening, they had a falling out, as an argument erupted between the couple, leading them to return home separately. Lisa arrived at their residence on Greenwood Court approximately 10 minutes after Ryan. She was so intoxicated and even seen falling down on the road before she got to their home. An argument started again in the kitchen, during which Lisa retrieved a kitchen knife and inflicted a fatal stab wound to Ryan. After the attack, Lisa called the emergency services, but while speaking on the phone, she appeared rude and was angry with the operator telling her what to do. She even used some swear words on the operator. After everything, Ryan was pronounced dead at 11:45 p.m. Upon arrival, paramedics and police officers found Ryan unresponsive on the kitchen floor. Lisa, exhibiting signs of heavy intoxication, initially claimed to have discovered her husband in that state and suggested that their 16-year-old daughter might have been involved. However, inconsistencies in her account, combined with evidence from the scene, led authorities to arrest Lisa on suspicion of murder. Lisa Elwood was charged with the murder of her husband and stood trial at Leeds Crown Court. Throughout the proceedings, the court heard testimonies about the couple's tumultuous relationship, marked by mutual accusations of infidelity and instances of domestic violence. Lisa's defense highlighted her struggles with alcohol dependency and mental health issues, asserting that she had no recollection of the events leading to Ryan's death. Lisa also stated during the trial that she was beaten frequently by Ryan whenever he was drunk, and he would also cheat on her. Despite this, the jury found her guilty of murder. On March 13, 2024, Lisa was sentenced to life imprisonment with a minimum term of 16 years before being eligible for parole. As of April 2025, Lisa Elwood has served approximately 1 year and 1 month of her 16-year minimum sentence. Christine Rawle. On August 21, 2022, in Braunton, Devon, England, a fatal domestic incident resulted in the death of 72-year-old Ian Rawle. On that day, an intense argument erupted between the wife, 70-year-old Christine Rawle, and Ian concerning the sale of a piece of land on their £800,000 smallholding. Christine wished to sell the land to finance a private eye operation, a decision Ian opposed. During the dispute, Christine retrieved a 12.5-inch knife and used it on Ian in the back with such force that the blade cut eventually caused severe damage to his body. Despite his injuries, Ian, who was attending to their horse at the time, managed to walk approximately 100 yards, pleading with Christine to remove the knife before collapsing and succumbing to the wound. Following the incident, Emergency services were summoned to the scene, where Ian was pronounced dead. Christine was arrested at their property without resistance and charged with his murder. During police interviews, she claimed self-defense, alleging years of physical, psychological, and body abuse by Ian. Christine's trial commenced at Exeter Crown Court, where she pleaded not guilty to murder, asserting that she acted in self-defense after enduring prolonged abuse. The prosecution, however, portrayed her as the aggressor, highlighting previous incidents where she had allegedly stabbed Ian and played cruel pranks on him, such as adding a substance to his tea and chili powder to his undergarments. After deliberating for just over 3 hours, the jury found Christine guilty of murder. On March 22, 2024, she was sentenced to life imprisonment with a minimum term of 17 years before being eligible for parole. As of April 2025, Christine Rahl has served approximately 1 year and 1 month of her 17-year minimum sentence. Anne Marie Burrows. On October 26, 2023, in Peterborough, England, 52-year-old Anne Marie Burrows murdered her friend, 56-year-old Paul Knowles, a Royal Navy veteran. The two regularly met at Mr. Knowles' flat on Farrier's Court in Woodston to drink and chat. During this particular meeting, Burrows assaulted Mr. Knowles, inflicting significant injuries to his face, eyes, and neck, and allegedly forced a sock down his throat, which obstructed his airway and led to his death. After the murder, Burrows left the scene, taking Mr. Knowles' bank card, which she later used at a shop. She first contacted the police on October 30th, stating she had killed a man but refused to provide further details, also stating that she was just having a nightmare. After many days later, she called the police again, confessing to the murder and revealing Mr. Knowles' identity and location. The police visited the location and discovered Mr. Knowles' body. Burrows was tracked down to her location and subsequently arrested at a property on Mountbatten Way in Ravensthorpe. The attending police officer indicated that the murder was an intentional one, as Burrows had no other intention than to kill the victim. Burrows claimed self-defense, alleging that Mr. Knowles had become abusive and threatened her with a bottle. However, the prosecution presented evidence of the violent nature of the assault, including the sock forced into Mr. Knowles' throat. On July 19, 2024, a jury at Cambridge Crown Court found Burrows guilty of murder. She was sentenced on July 23, 2024, to life imprisonment with a minimum term of 17 years before being eligible for parole. Thank you guys for watching till the end.